All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil, both of us credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, join more than 17,000 Heat fans and click that subscribe button. This is one more thing presented by FanDuel. We are talking about some new additions that the Miami Heat have made. We have some roster moves that we need to catch up on. They have officially signed forward Myron Gardner to a two-way contract, filling one of their available two-way spots alongside Vlad Golden. Drew Smith is expected to get that third and final two-way contract. So we'll talk about Gardner here. We'll talk about some of the guys who did not get that two-way spot, who we thought that might be in the mix for that two-way spot and what happens to them. But Myron Gardner, this is one of the most impressive guys from the Heat's Summer League roster. He averaged 13.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, 1.8 assists, and 2.7 steals per game while shooting 50% overall. He was lights out from three-point range, 61.5% from three, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say won't do that in the NBA, but it's nice that he was shooting well, shot well from the free throw line, a perfect 7 for 7. So a little bit of background on Myron Gardner. 24 years old, so a little bit older, but not. You consider some of the two-way guys that Miami has brought in the past. I think Duncan was 24 when he joined Miami on a two-way. I think Kel'el was like 25 when he joined Miami on a two-way. So this tends to be, they like some guys with a little bit of seasoning on these two-way contracts sometimes, especially at that forward spot, 6'6", 220 pounds. And he had spent the last couple years with the Magic's G League team, and then ended up signing with Miami for Summer League, played really well in the California Classic, got hurt for the first few games in Vegas, came back towards the end of Vegas, and just picked up right where he left off from San Francisco, just playing really well. He was probably Miami's best guy in Summer League. He got rewarded with this two-way contract. You think about some of the guys that Miami has had on two-ways in the past at this position, at this forward, kind of 6'6", 220 forward kind of guy, whether it was Caleb Martin, Jamal Cain. Miami has a type. Some of them work, some of them don't work out, but Myron Gardner is the newest addition.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You know, they certainly want a developmental wing type player that can bring something defensively and show some of the Heat culture-ish tendencies and qualities that they like so much in a player. So, a guy who could have been a second round pick perhaps or something along those lines. So they really appreciate those kinds of players having gone through the journey and put in the work just to stay in the league. And I mean, that makes sense too. Like, you have to be able to have a single-minded focus and know that you belong at this level. And I think for a player like that has shown that willingness to put in the work and continue to improve, because he just didn't have anything handed to him because he just wasn't that type of player coming out of college. It fits a lot with what the Heat are looking for. But I don't, we talked last week about trying to figure out this rotation, and it's just his work is definitely cut out for him in terms of there's not going to be a lot of playing time there. So how does he find a way to pop? How does he find a way to shine and contribute at a high level? I would expect him spending a lot of more time in Sioux Falls than in Miami.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, at the very least, you get a guy who you liked on the Osceola Magic, which is Orlando's G League team, and you're just like, okay, well, we're going to give this guy a two-way. We're going to bring him into our system.
Right.
And, Miami, we like Kashad Johnson. We don't really know what Kashad is going to be at the NBA. We don't really know. Haywood Highsmith is, I think this is the final year of his contract, right? So
yeah, yes.
This is the pipeline, and Gardner's in that pipeline, and guys like Josh Christopher and Jamal Cain over the last couple of years, like, these guys just didn't really pop. They didn't.
Right.
They were brought in to try to fill the pipeline, didn't work out, and both of them lasted basically 1 year. Jamal Cain a little bit longer, but they basically lasted a year on the official two-way. And that was it. And so they moved on to a new guy here. The thing I like about Gardner is in college and in the G League, he's posted really high steal rates, and in Summer League. Like, this guy has a nose for the basketball. He's going to go get that basketball. And we've talked about this a lot with Eric Spoelstra. What's the one thing that he's looking for defensively? How can you create turnovers? How can you turn defense into offense? And I really like Myron Gardner in that regard. Like, if he's a guy who can consistently make jumpers, and by the way, he was a decent three-point shooter in college, good in the G League, awesome, obviously, in Summer League. If he could just hit open threes and create steals with that size and that frame, it feels like the path is there. Like that's the kind of player who tends to just hang around on an NBA roster for a while.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You need to see consistent 3-and-D ability.
Mm-hmm.
That's his pathway. So I don't which do you think is most well, I already know the answer to this question. I was gonna say which is most likely to get him an opportunity, and it's not gonna be the 3-point shooting. Is if he shows that he could be that kind of chaotic defender and force turnovers
Yep.
and be a perimeter on ball defensive just presence. I think you'll be able to see him play some consistent minutes because that's what we saw from Highsmith too. Like before he
Yep.
turned into a 40% shooter, he was just a guy who could do some things defensively, and that's how he was able to earn more and more playing time. And I think you'd see the same thing from Gardner too.
Yeah, Highsmith kind of cracked the Heat rotation on the hands team, right? That's like a football term, but it's just like, hey, we just need to get a stop. We just gotta
Right.
put a defensive lineup out there. We need guys who are versatile, can get a hand on the basketball,
Right.
and maybe Gardner can crack, get a couple minutes here and there on that two way. But again, with these two way guys, you're not expecting them to be a part of the rotation. You just want them to hang around
Right.
and just develop. That's the whole thing. Now maybe if there's some injuries, maybe Myron Gardner gets onto the court, but he's a guy that I think we're going to hear a lot of in training camp and in practices. And you're going to hear guys like Bam and Tyler just talk about how Gardner is a
Right.
dog on defense. And like Davion Mitchell will just like kind of take him under his wing. Like that's the kind of guy that I'm expecting here, right? Like I'm just
I
expecting
love
like
it.
a training camp, like Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
like a post practice one-on-one legend. And then maybe eventually he gets, a year or two from now, he starts getting onto the court when Miami has fully developed him. I think there is a surprising part of this, though. It is not necessarily that Myron Gardner got the spot, but who did not get the spot and what Miami's two ways look like. So I want to talk about that here in a second. Plus, Miami did fill a spot for their training camp roster, a sharpshooter coming over from Golden State. We'll talk about that here in a second. But first, today's little bonus episode of One More Thing is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions. It's a fun way to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Here are the guys who did not get the two-way contract, though, and I think they were probably on the fringe there. And it was
Mhm.
probably a hard decision, but Devontae Cook and Eric Stevenson. Cook was a similar sort of lengthy forward type, two-way-ish potential. Just the production wasn't there. He had a couple big games in summer league. The overall production wasn't as there as it was with Myron Gardner. So I think Gardner edges him out. But the tough one to me was Stevenson, who just shot the lights out of the ball from
Yeah.
3-point range. Had like this Max Strus kind of way of carrying himself, overly confident. Didn't matter that he had to bounce around the league and had bounced around a bunch of different colleges. He was a leader on the court. Being out there in Vegas, he was always communicating. He was the last one. I remember he was always sort of like the last one working at practice in Vegas. I think he did everything he could to ingratiate himself with the team and to endear himself to the coaching staff. I just think at the end of the day, Miami has a type, and they want some of these more versatile, lengthier forward types. And Stevenson, he's a smidge short at that position. The 3-point shooting is there, but I guess they questioned whether or not, what else he was going to do. They ended up going Gardner here, but I do think it was a tough choice between Gardner and Stevenson.
Yeah. It's interesting because you can make a case that Stevenson is also a type of player that Miami has liked before and been interested in developing. So,
Yeah, that's true.
um,
Kind of like that Duncan Robinson, Max Strus type,
hey,
right?
Vincent,
6'3", 200 pounds, ton of confidence, high volume 3-point shooter. Yeah.
do they view him as too undersized to take that chance? So maybe that's what it is. Like, if he's just not going to be able to hold his own or be a switchable type defender because of his size limitations,
Mm.
maybe you have to show some incredible defensive tenacity. So despite whatever he can do offensively, I think that the knock on him defensive would be too great to overlook and to offer that kind of opportunity. So it's unfortunate, but again, even in the past, we've seen what's the word that they always use? Positional size. Like Spo loves to be able to see that, and Stevenson just doesn't provide that. He's too undersized for his position to
Yeah,
take
it
a
feels
chance.
like since they landed on Duncan Robinson and Strus, they just haven't found that guy, right? Whether it was Drew Peterson or Cole Swider, who were definitely bigger, but
Right,
not as maybe mobile.
right,
Stevenson can get the
sure.
ball up and down the court. They had him on the ball a little bit in Vegas where he could play make a little bit. I think maybe he's more of like, can he have like a Sam Merrill type of role
Mm,
somewhere? But you have to be an elite shooter to be like a Sam Merrill type. And yeah, I'm not sure he's there quite yet.
no,
He's also 26 years old, so it's a little bit late in his development. But this is a guy, by the way, I think Miami is going to love to have him back in Sioux Falls if he lands
yes,
there. There could be another team that says, you know what, we do like Eric Stevens. He was good in summer league. He was good in Las Vegas. He could get a two-way somewhere else. That's definitely a possibility. But if he doesn't, I think Miami would love to have him back in Sioux Falls. And these
yes.
two-way contracts could be swapped out at any time. So if something happens, somebody gets hurt, whatever, they can always. I think Stevenson would be on the short list there. Last thing here, or two more things. Drew Smith likely to get that final two-way spot. So now the 3 two-ways are going to be Golden, Gardner, and Drew Smith. Quick yay or nay, David. I mean, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, again, not enough versatility there so that you can see. Well, hopefully one of them will pop and maybe they'll continue to develop. But I think Miami fans in general are kind of done with the whole undrafted route and hoping that they'll turn out. It's more about getting the top tier talent rather than just worrying about the 17th guy on the bench, basically.
Last bit of news here. Miami is starting to fill out their training camp roster. They signed Gabe Madsen to an Exhibit 10 contract. 24-year-old, skilled three-point shooter. Played collegiately at Utah. 6'5". This is what his stats in his final college season here at Utah: 15 points, 2.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. Shot 37% overall, which is not good, but 32% from three-point range, which is also not good. But if you go to the 3 years previous where he had started his collegiate career in Cincinnati, he shot 39%, 37%, and 38.5%. So I think he was just miscast a little bit in Utah last year. It was a little bit maybe not. I'm not going to tell you that I went into the Gabe Madsen film room here. I'm going to assume that he was just asked to be on the ball a little bit too much. Maybe it was difficulty shots, whatever. Clearly, the track record is there. He's a career 36+% three-point shooter. He's known as a good three-point shooter, so I'm not that worried about it. Draft Express ranked him the 89th prospect in the 2024 NBA draft. So it's not, we're not talking about a blue chipper here, but we're talking about a guy with a decent body of work. Miami brings him in on an Exhibit 10. He's going to be part of the training camp roster. And just another quick reminder, teams are allowed to hold up to 21 players on the roster. You have 18 players on the regular roster, right? You have 15 standard contracts, 3 two-ways, and then you can add a couple of more bodies basically for training camp. And that's essentially what Gabe Madsen's going to be. You get an up-close look at him here. I think he played with Golden State during Summer League. So you get an up-close look at him now. Maybe this is a way for him to funnel into the Sioux Falls Skyforce program.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's an interesting name, I guess, but nothing to really look forward to in terms of what he might be able to produce.
More three-point shooting, right? I mean, they want to
Gotta
fill
have
the
it.
pipeline with three-point shooters, like every team, right? They're always looking for good three-point shooters, and then maybe you develop something else, and you never know.
Yeah.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.